Hello, everyone. It's Chris Carver with Hexagon Safety Infrastructure and Geospatial, here with another edition of Hexagon's Public Safety Speaks vodcast series. This particular special episode brings together a team of experts to talk about an issue that's, well, it's in the news now. It's front and center in the concern of many agencies across the United States and beyond. But unfortunately, it's not a new issue. So today, our team of experts from both the 911 public safety community, the consultant community, and the vendor community, all with a wealth of experience and knowledge on this issue. We're going to talk through some of the things around swatting that agencies need to know. A little bit about its background, a little bit about where it's currently headed, and how agencies can use resources and insight in technology to potentially help address this, quite frankly, very terrifying issue that so many folks across the United States have become aware of recently, and unfortunately, many have become the victims of as well. So you all know me. My name is Chris Carver, Director of Market Development for Hexagon, and I'd like to introduce the three panelists that we're so fortunate to have here today as part of this conversation. Heather, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Heather McGaffin. I'm the Director of the Office of Unified Communications, and we are Washington, D.C.'s 911 and 311 Center. Thanks so much for having me today, Chris.
All right, thank you for being here, Heather. John, please introduce yourself.
Hello, John Chiaramonte. I'm President of Consulting Services for Mission Critical Partners. We're a consulting firm that's focused in on 911, next generation 911 facility operations, and justice outcomes.
Thank you, John. Great to have you. And Fletch.
Yeah, thanks very much. Always a pleasure to be here. Mark Fletcher, known as Fletch. I'm the Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform, and we're an emergency event management solutions software company.
All right, thank you. And all of you bring a wealth of experience, not just to this particular issue, but of course to 911 and public safety in general. I'd like to start with Heather. So from the perspective of a director of one of the nation's busiest and really largest 911 entities, swatting, define it for us. Tell us what exactly it is we're talking about here today.
Sure. So swatting is one of those things that has become a problem for a lot of centers, especially a problem here in our nation's capital, where we have a lot of really identifiable landmarks and a lot of decision makers in one place. And so when we talk about swatting, we define it as a call or even now an email that is coming into a 911 center that is eliciting a response of typically a SWAT team or special operations. Most recently, our more well-known swatting incident was actually not even eliciting a police response. It was actually eliciting a fire response for a call at the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, thank you, Heather. And I think one of the most important things for folks to know, and really the impetus for the conversation we're having here today, is the fact this has been around for a bit. So, Mr. Fletcher, could you take us through some of the historical context around swatting and really the fact that this isn't necessarily a new occurrence?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you and I did a webinar years ago, and you brought up the point that swatting was something that was covered on the old CHIPS series when someone was calling in fires and watching the fire response to them. But it's been around for a long time. Basically, people are spoofing into 911, saying there's a response, trying to elicit that SWAT team response. It's been very proactive in the gamer community when someone loses a game. When a lot of that went on the internet and being recorded on video, it was popular to SWAT your opponent player while they were on video and actually watch the SWAT team, break in and enter the building. There have been unfortunate incidents out in St. Louis where the SWATter actually called in the SWAT team to the wrong address. Someone came out, didn't follow instructions of the officers. They thought he was reaching into his waistband. He was ultimately shot and killed. They caught the SWATter in that case, and he was prosecuted for murder.
So it's been around for a while. It ranges from gamer type events where you're just trying to mess with your other players, all the way up to potentially political actions and events that could have some swatting issues. So John, could you walk us through from your perspective supporting some of the training and education awareness around this issue? Where are we headed with it? What can be done about it?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think it's important to note that these types of calls to 911 are socially engineered. They are compelling. They're not, the typical bomb threat from a payphone of years ago, right? These are, they've taken the time, a bad actor has taken the time to put together a story that is believable, at least to to an average 911 telecommunicator. So it's not like these are easy to spot. There are some things that, we know that are telltale signs that might raise suspicion, if you will, that this might not be a true call. For example, there's a high likelihood that these calls don't originate to a 911 line, that they're coming through a 10-digit number, or as Heather just said, that they're coming in by email. And there's this, potential way to try to identify, mitigate, and hopefully prevent. But we are seeing that there is an opportunity to pull together maybe enhanced interrogation techniques, different questions that might be asked, different ways that they could be asked, and different ways to identify things that might be a little bit outside the ordinary. Many email systems today have a banner up at the top saying, "This email originated from an external resource. Don't click on any links." Is there something that we could have from a technology perspective that would have that same kind of banner to a 911 telecommunicator that says, "Use caution"? And these things can be put hopefully into maybe a webinar or a master class, if you will, to help telecommunicators better prepare, because although, the Washington, D.C. 911 center is getting these on a daily basis, not every 911 center is experiencing that same level of 911 false calls.
So, Heather, to what extent has OUC worked to address swatting or prepare dispatchers for it? What's sort of been your process to work through this issue as an organization?
Sure. So every time I talk to Fletch, he says, "What's the number?" And today I didn't have the answer, but the last time I think it was like 185, and we've seen each other about 3 times this week. So, it's definitely a situation that we have to address, or it would just become so overwhelming for our call takers. So one of the things that we did was we really saw the need right up front to identify the targets, or what we thought would be the targets. And so here in Washington, D.C., we have the Metropolitan Police Department, who is our local law enforcement, but we also are interacting with 27 federal law enforcement agencies, everybody from the Capitol Police to Secret Service. U.S. Supreme Court has a police department. And so what we did was we were starting to get an influx of emails from our partners saying that they needed to alert us to, a target, or what they believe to be a target. So here in DC, we created a database, and that database is really basic, but it's really helped us keep track of some targeted places, some targeted people in a very secure way. And then that way, if we get calls for those locations, we've put that into our CAD system, into our Hexagon CAD system, and the dispatchers see the note. The responding units see the note that this could possibly be related to swatting. And so we're doing that, and it seems really basic, but it's been really helpful to us because we have so many people who are transient, right? All of Congress is coming here at some point throughout the year. And so, where are they living? Where are they staying? What are they doing? And so we're just making sure that we've got kind of a good idea of what's really happening in our city, in our space. And I would say to every 911 center, it doesn't matter if you think you have it or you don't have it, reach out to law enforcement. Make sure that your community knows how to get information to you. Just like if you have someone who has a medical condition that might require extra attention, that you're putting those in those CAD notes, and that you're really keeping up with that, because that's the second part of it. You're keeping up with the CAD notes, and you're verifying the information that you receive. So we're doing a better job on that. And it also allows us to make contact right away with our federal partners in the response, to just say, "Hey, this is the call we got." Yes, maybe we're sending officers out, but that allows them to meet us on scene, or whatever the case may be, to have some sort of interaction earlier on in the situation.
So, Heather, do you share with responding officers that there's a potential that an event may be a swatting call?
We do. We do. And they can see that too. All of our responders, police and fire, all have mobile data terminals in their apparatus or in their vehicles. So they can see that as well.
Oh, very good. Thank you. So, Mark, in your role as part of the leadership team for the National Emergency Number Association, really the 911 Association, you're interacting with 911 professionals from all around the country, a variety of different agencies. Have you seen some other things that have kind of best practices or insights that you've gained that are worth sharing for viewers about how to address this issue?
Well, I think one of the most common things, Chris, is that today there's the latest number I saw was 87% of the 911 calls on a national average are coming in from mobile cellular devices. If you go to some place like downtown Nashville, Steve Martini will tell you 97% of his inbound traffic is from mobile calls on cellular devices. When something happens, you have 15, 20, 30, 50 people that see it and are calling 911. Yet you have someone calling in on a 10-digit administrative line that is findable, but you've got to work to even get that number. And someone is reporting a mass shooting where there are 20 people lying dead on the street, and you have a single phone call coming in on an admin line. You can't ignore it, right? Because it could be real. But that right there is a telltale indicator that the fish doesn't smell right.
So that's a really great point, Fletch, about sort of the operational policy and procedure of looking at, holistically, how much information do we have about this event? Where is it occurring? To Heather's point, what are some of the things around there that may make this a likely swatting environment? So, John, bringing it all together, as is often the role for a firm like MCP, and kind of getting that larger 25 or 30,000 foot view of this issue, how do you see all these things coming together along with our experience and learning from what's happened to really create a picture of understanding about this issue for the public safety community?
Chris, I think information is key, right? I think just helping 911 professionals across our industry understand what swatting is, some best practices to better get some additional information from a caller who's reporting this type of incident, maybe making some operational changes. Excuse me. Heather mentioned having a registry perhaps, and other organizations have done that, and there are tools out there that allow you to create this registry. And there could be some policy recommendations, there could be legislation. I don't think we're going to legislate our way out of this problem, right? Because I think it's important to have legislation that will penalize false calls and swatting incidents, but that's not going to be the only solution. And it really is bringing all those things together, the technology, operations, and policy considerations, and training to have kind of a holistic approach to, again, identifying, mitigating, and preventing swatting incidents. And that's going to be the key. And through distributing that information, having a toolkit or resources available to organizations so they can better understand the problem and perhaps solve the problem upstream, if you will, I think will be a key factor to the success of getting past this.
All right, thank you, John. And do you know, just as we kind of wind down our discussion day, do you know where some of those resources are? And I'll ask this of everybody here, where resources are and insights are available for agencies to do training and education on this issue.
Yeah, Mission Critical Partners found that there really isn't a lot of information out there, and it's disconcerting that it's something so important and so impactful to our 911 center's daily operations that we were frankly surprised that there just wasn't more information out there. The FBI has a virtual command center that is tracking information about swatting incidents after they've occurred. But I don't think most 911 centers know how to access that, or and it's a law enforcement portal. So I think that's key. And Mission Critical Partners looks forward to putting together some educational materials and making those available to the community. So hold tight. We'll get some more information out about that.
See what we can do. All right, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Mark, though, from your perspective on the NENA side, That's sort of an issue that we see recur, right? Where things happen, and it's sometimes challenging, I would say, to get every 911 center that needs to know about something aware of a problem that we're facing. And this isn't perhaps another example of that. From your perspective in the industry and being involved in the association, how do you see us kind of improving that? Do you see any tools that are out there that we can better leverage to make sure that we're all at least aware of that common operational picture and those common operating challenges?
Well, yeah, I think part of the problem all along, Chris, has been that you don't want to publish detailed information that's publicly available, because then you're showing your hand, so to speak. As soon as the swatters understand what you know, they'll change their tactics to be something that you don't know. So there's always been that balancing act of how much do I make available and who do I make it available to? And the tighter you lock it, the tighter the distribution becomes. So I'm going to say that NINA.org is a great resource. We're building out information on this. I don't have any specific thing I can release on the swatting incident, but watch this space closely. 911.gov. I think Brian Tetmeyer is building a huge library of resources across the board. The swatting material is going to get in there as well. But there needs to be an easy to access, authenticated library where validated folks can go in and get the latest dirt, because as this gets exposed, the problem is going to change and the solution is going to change. And what we know today may not be relevant, well, tomorrow, yes, but not next year. And as next gen evolves, it's going to all change quickly.
Right. No, absolutely. And for the purposes of not wanting to sound commercialized, but I do have to point out, as a vendor myself, as working for a vendor, but also with 911 experience, this is a perfect example yet again of a challenge that public safety faces that requires everyone to get involved and solve. Whether it's information, whether it's consulting, pointing things out, whether it's associations driving the collection and dispersal of that information, whether it's agencies using the tools, whether it's training or technology that are available, these big time challenges really require all of us to come to the table and collaborate and communicate. And so with that, Heather, I'd like to ask you the last kind of direct question. Where do you see this all headed, and what advice would you give other 911 organizations around the United States and beyond, really, facing the swatting issue? Since you're seeing it so much, what would you tell others as a way to potentially find a path forward?
I think it's one of those things that you really just have to tackle head on. It's going to affect you in one way or another. You don't need to be in the nation's capital to be swatted. I was certainly, when I worked in a rural center, swatted. And so, I think you have to find a path forward that makes sense for your agency, and you really have to be engaged with your law enforcement officials and with your executives and legislators as well, because we certainly aren't going to legislate our way out of this, but abusing 911 should be a crime across this nation. And, while in most places it is, in some places it still isn't. And so, it's one of those things that you are just going to have to maybe right now find your own resources, as we're kind of ramping up as an industry, some resource libraries, but they're out there, and a quick internet search will kind of point you in the right direction. The FBI in Boston and the Massachusetts State Police have been offering a free class. It pops up every once in a while, and you can register for free. It's a couple of hours online, and it's really helpful for your call takers to better understand exactly what swatting is and some of the things to kind of be on the lookout for. Annie doesn't show up with 10 digits. Maybe it only shows up with 7, or it's extremely quiet in the background. In an active situation, it's probably going to be really loud. And so, it just kind of shows what to look for. And it's something that you really have to continuously train on, because Fletch said it really well. What is valid today isn't going to be valid next week, because they're always going to stay a step ahead of us. So just, keep an eye on it, be prepared for it, and make sure that your folks know what to do, because this is just another kind of thing coming for us in this workspace.
All right. Well, thank you. Did anybody have any last comments? John, did you have anything you wanted to share on that?
I'll say something that kind of dovetails on something Fletch and Heather said. It's been about 10 years that since the LAPD came out with a statement basically saying that they were no longer going to offer immediate information about a swatting incident on a celebrity's home. And there had been a rash of swatting incidents, and they basically just said, we're not going to publicize this information. So swatting incidents just don't get the media attention in Los Angeles anymore. And I'm not suggesting that we withhold information from the media, but I think to Heather's point, we reevaluate how we share that information and try to discourage the notoriety of a swatting incident, right? I mean, I think some of these bad actors are looking for that kind of reaction, and perhaps reevaluating social media or how this information is released. For example, LAPD will continue to provide that information through a public records request, and that just takes a few days, right? So that might be, another thing people aren't considering. But these things, as they get publicized, perhaps may make people encouraged to do that, more. Yeah.
All right, thank you, John, for that. Fletch, any last words?
I just have one last question, Chris.
Yes.
What's the number, Heather?
Well, I did confirm that we have 2 more today, but I don't know what they were the last couple of days. But next time we talk, I'll have a real number for you. But we're approaching 200, and for it to only be March 1st, and that number has been ticking since January 1st. It's a real problem.
Well, what better way to highlight that the effort and the challenge will continue and will require the collaboration of vendors, associations, agencies, and the professionals who are under the headset every day as we try to find our way forward and perhaps never eliminate the risk of swatting or the potential of swatting, but at least mitigate some of the risks involved. And John, that was a great point, and perhaps some of the notoriety, which may in and of itself help address this challenge. I'd like to thank again our 3 guests, Fletch, John, and Heather. It was a wonderful conversation. Truly enjoyed speaking with you about this issue and look forward to talking with you about this and other things to come. And for all those who've watched us on the Hexagon Public Safety Speaks vodcast this time, thank you very much for being here. We look forward to speaking with another panel of experts soon on another critical issue facing public safety in North America and beyond. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.